Check 1 2. Hey everybody, thank you for listening to another solo episode of Craft Talk. I'm Tito, and this episode is going to be the last episode of 2024. I can't believe it. We're here. We made it. I'm really excited to do a little bit of a recap of my year. But before we dive into that, I have a question. When you pressed play on this episode, I'm assuming that you saw the title. How did you read the title? And when you saw it, did it give you an idea of what I would talk about? I intentionally titled it this way so you can read it a couple different ways. You can either read it as creating content or creating content. So what is it? What am I talking about? Is this about creating media or is it about finding peace? And the answer is yes. That was probably a little obvious, but the answer is yes. In my world this year, both of those ideas, the content and content, became super important to me. Every year, my friends and I come up with these themes for the year. And they're kind of like resolutions, but not as specific. So they're more of like a guide or a vibe. So for example, rather than the specific goal of, I want to lose 50 pounds, the theme would be more the year of feeling physically good or the year of getting swole. And I think, yeah, you can argue that the resolution and the theme pretty much has the same outcome, but just like the title of this episode, those slight differences in how you look at something, it matters. Which brings us back to my main point. At the beginning of 2024, my theme was the year of content. And with parentheses, like I actually had the parentheses, yes, the way you look at it matters. So depending on how I look at it, I can either read it as the year of content or the year of content. And this theme, it pretty much hit the spot for me. 2024 was a bit of a comeback year for me. I was coming back from about a year and a half, probably a little longer, of taking time off of any creative work. So no music, no nothing. For the first time in my life that I could remember, I just didn't press publish. And I had this feeling like I was ready to start back up. I knew I wanted to start creating again, but I was also a bit scared. Scared that if I went too hard, I would end up burning myself out like I normally do. So when I thought of this theme, the year of content, yes, the way you look at it matters, it just felt so right. It pretty much gave me comfort in both directions. It was a reminder to be content with whatever I produced, whether it was a lot or a little, but it also gave me the green light to push myself if I wanted to. So now that it's the end of the year, I'm looking back at this theme and I can confidently say that it worked for me, which is really cool. And I do feel both of those things when I think about my work. I was able to find contentment and then also push content at the same time. And now reflecting back, I'm thinking about why did this work for me? Because hopefully me sharing this, the goal is for it to work for you too. I feel like this concept can be boiled down into two words, and that's boundaries and permission. Let's start with boundaries. Setting practical limits is what allowed me to stay balanced and avoid that burnout that I was worried about. For example, at the beginning of the year, I set a modest and doable goal for myself, and that was 4 guest interviews for the entire year. And starting off with that number, to me, seemed like plenty at the time. Just getting back into it, I was thinking about all of the coordination, the prep work, the post-production, the editing, the social media, uploading and sharing. All of those little tasks that is involved with that, I was like, 4 is plenty. I could commit to that without feeling like I bit off more than I can chew. Yeah, so I was pretty much thinking that's 1 interview per quarter. That's doable. So I started there. I created a boundary there. And if that was all I managed to get done, given all the things that's involved with that, I told myself that would be enough. So there's that. And on the other side of these boundaries is permission. I was grounded by the idea that contentment is the priority. Like that was number 1. But then at the same time, if I wanted to push and challenge myself, I had permission. If I felt like I could do more than 1 interview a quarter, then cool. That's like cherry on top. If I sprinkle a solo episode here and there, that's extra credit. And here's the magical and maybe ironic thing about it. The time that I was actually starting to accept the fact that I'm going to choose to be content no matter how little I create, it actually provided me more content. So contentment gave me content. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. Maybe it's just the power of intentions. Because after a couple interviews, I started feeling warmed up about my process. I felt more confident in my skills. Maybe I shook off a little bit of the rust. My workflow felt smoother. So, okay, let's start scheduling more interviews. And before I know it, at the end of the year, looking back, I went well above my goal. Honestly, I probably still overdid it. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still working on that. But this year has been one of the most productive years I've ever had creatively, which is nuts to think about. Deciding to put all my creative focus on Craft Talk, talking to people that I've interviewed, producing every piece of content that comes along with that, I actually feel very proud of everything I've accomplished. I don't think I could have given any more. Being able to admit that, that's a big deal to me. So I really love that this achievement came from a phrase or a theme that had dual meaning, almost diametrically opposed ideas. I used to think that creating more meant sacrificing my contentment, that I had to be pushing myself and never feeling settled in order to keep pursuing whatever thing it is we're trying to achieve. But this is my year of content, and this is my year of content. It can be both. So speaking of dual truths, I want to close this episode out by sharing a quote with you. This quote is from a Danish physicist named Niels Bohr, and the quote is, "The opposite of a correct statement is a false statement, but the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth." Ooh. I'll let you chew on that one. But that's it. If this resonated with you at all, please steal this theme. I hope that you can find your own ways to strike that balance between boundaries and permissions. And if you found some tools or techniques that's helped you with this, definitely send me a message because I would love to hear them. And lastly, I just want to thank everybody who has supported me on Craft Talk, whether you've listened to the podcast or just stumbled upon the page on social media. I'm super excited to continue collecting ideas and conversations, connecting those dots, connecting the pieces, putting a bow on it, and then sharing it with you. I'm just so grateful for the people who trusted me to interview them, how every single guest was so open and sharing a lot about themselves. Yeah, when I go down the list of guests I've had on, I'm just really proud to have created something special with them. And with that, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Craft Talk. We'll talk to you in 2025. Bye.